All right, guys, so we're super excited to have Justin Bryant from Rapsodo back. Justin, we had you on a little less than a year ago now, but it's great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Excited to talk some golf, talk some Rapsodo products.
Absolutely. And look, last time we had you on the show, and for anybody who didn't catch up with that episode, we talked a little bit about your own competitive history in the game, playing a little bit with the Korn Ferry and at the amateur level and things like that. And we were able to get a little bit of insight into some better ways to practice. We talked about using the MLM1 and some of the combines and things like that were in there. So as we kind of talk a little bit about the new device, I want to get your insight on really where the rubber meets the road. It's a really cool, fun tech device. I mean, we all kind of geek out about that stuff, but all right, how's it actually going to make us better? And we'll dive into some of the new features. But the first thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about what some of the development and some of the motivation was behind the scenes as you were preparing to improve upon the MLM1. Was it feedback driven from users? Was it stuff that you guys just really wanted to get out there? What was it that kind of drove that change in some of the new features that we're seeing in the MLM2?
Yeah, it's been a really exciting process of just really, MLM1 has been such a successful, great product when we brought it into the market in 2019 at a price point that people could really afford and kind of get numbers, that they kind of see on tour. And so really excited about that, but also listening to customer feedback of things, they wanted to see. And we really implemented that into everything with the product. So when you just even look at the design of it, it looks completely different than anything out there. It's a taller unit. So some of the feedback we heard was, we have that down the line camera from the MLM1, and people wanted that viewpoint a little higher. So even just the design of the function, making those cameras as high as possible, we thought, without kind of making it still compact. We're not making it too big, still compact where you could break it in two pieces and put it in your bag. So there's design elements like that. Integrating the cameras into the unit itself, so you didn't have to, you could kind of put the phone or your tablet wherever you wanted, bring an Android into it, as well as other camera angles, spin and simulation. So we can kind of dive into that, but really this product was made for, our consumers, really listening to them and seeing, what other features they wanted when they practiced.
And what do you see as far as the numbers or the general overall vibe between indoor and outdoor practice? I know for us, here in the Northeast, where we have a short season, we are chomping at the bit for some way that we can get effective practice indoors. So when we saw some of the things like the spin and things that could be, and even now the combines could be done indoors, that was the one that kind of really sparked my attention towards it, because I thought this is a way that I can actually put in effective practice over the winter. Where did you see with that? Is our users using it about 50-50? What was the demand there?
Yeah, so with our current product, I think it's about 60-70% outdoor usage. There's still that good contingent that is getting it in their net. And with MLM1, it's great. You can kind of get those, those numbers and kind of stay sharp. But definitely, MLM1 lacks the ability to do combines indoors, and people wanted to, play courses inside and things like that. So that's where the MLM2, it'll be really interesting to see the use case of how people use it, where the breakdown is with that. And I really think it's probably going to almost lean more inside, would be my guess. Once people kind of have those set up, so their nets in their backyards and wanting to play sim, or just kind of get tuned up and do combines, which is kind of my favorite feature with the product. So I think it'll kind of shift maybe more indoor usage, but I don't know. I'm kind of anxious to see, because there is that portability where you can just kind of put it in your bag and go wherever you want. So
Justin, I first of all, congratulations. I mean, we were at the PGA show. We saw the booth. We saw the setup. It seemed like you guys stole the show in regards to tech products. I mean, there's a lot of buzz around the product. So I'm sure everyone at Rapsodo is loving the initial pre-orders and everything that's been going on behind the scenes. So congratulations on that. But I got to ask you, one of the major things that was changed in the new MLM2 was the ability to get spin and get that indoors. I wanted to ask you, for you, Korn Ferry Tour guy, great golfer, when did the spin craze happen? I feel like we always just wanted carry, distance, but is that something recent? Is that something you see a lot of golfers are now craving?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the next level there. Once you kind of are new to the game, you're like, okay, I need to get my carried, numbers so I can like understand how far I hit it. And then kind of the deeper you get into the game, you're like trying to like optimize everything, and you nerd out. So I think it's that second layer of the golfers of trying to look at spin. So I think it's, what I really look at it is like with my wedge shots and like driver 3-wood. I think some people geek out on like their 7-iron and things like that. For me, I kind of keep it more simple. So there's certain, spin numbers I'm looking for with my driver based on the launch and things like that, and with the wedges. So it really adds another level when you're inside, kind of looking at, spin, you want it low with your driver so you can optimize distance, kind of that high launch, low spin. Granted, it depends on your club speed and things like that of what the kind of the optimal spin is. And then with the wedges, you kind of want that lower launch, higher spin shot to really control the trajectory. So yeah, it was like the most asked for feature with outside of Android with MLM1 is people like, I want spin. So I think as technology improved, it's made it possible to get accurately.
Yeah, and that's why I think I keep seeing when it comes to like launch monitors and just tech in general, it's that you're seeing like your everyday golfers are starting to get a taste of what happens at the high level. So for example, we were just last week down in Sea Island in Georgia, and they've got just an unbelievable training facility there. And I remember as they're giving us the tour, and we see so many tour players and high collegiate level players there. And like, you guys got to understand, these guys, like all the tech in the world that you could want, all that stuff. And they're like, these guys are trying to get 1% better. It's kind of like what you said before. It's just like at that level, it's the fine tuning that makes the difference for where they're competing. But then I'm even thinking like nowadays we're seeing more people in general show up to driving ranges with some sort of launch monitor device with them. And the conversation's even changing. Like I remember, it wasn't that long ago, I would take my wedges out and I would just aim for different flags and try to get different distances. And now you hear part of the general vocabulary is things like launch angle. Like a guy will be there like, I'm working on my launch angle with wedges. And I feel like we never heard that outside of your top tier players who are professionals competing. Like, where do you think this shift is happening in amateur golf? Like, where are we headed? Are we headed to a more tech-driven and a more metric-driven game for the amateur?
I think there's just so much more like data and knowledge available. So like there's people that I would say on like the super far end of the spectrum of like, DeChambeau, where he's like, looking at every single number, trying to figure out, how he can optimize it. And it's a lot of people that's overwhelming. There's people like Dustin Johnson that are only looking at a couple metrics. But I think if you want to improve, you kind of need to know where you are in order to get better. So like, for instance, you're saying, people will say, I want to be a better wedge player. And before it was like, well, I'm going to go out and hit shots to the flags on the range, and it's going to be 60 yards, 70 yards, or whatever system you had to get better at wedges. And that helps you improve, but to a point. Then there's the next level. Well, okay, I'm pretty good there, but when it's windy or off a certain lie, I'm not as good. So now we kind of have the data to understand that, what are the best wedge players doing, not from just the technique, but what's their ball doing? And their ball's coming out, under 30 degrees launch angle with more spin. And so then it gives you just a metric that you can check. So when like I hit wedges, I'm looking at launch angle, which, also correlates to apex and the carry distance. So those are kind of the numbers that I'm looking at. There's other people that look at, ball speed and all that kind of stuff with their wedges. But for me, if it's coming out under 30 degrees and it's hitting that number I want, I know I can kind of control the trajectory better. Because for me, I used to kind of hit these high floaty wedges. And if it was a flat lie with no wind, I was pretty good. But if I got into a situation where it was a crosswind or into the wind, it just was hard to control. So just like understanding things like that is like, okay, I'm going to learn to hit my wedges low. There's times when you kind of need to hit the high floaty one, but in general, understanding those metrics. So I think it starts at the pro level, and then, the college amateur, it's you can kind of make it what you want with the metrics, but it's definitely gonna always be there now that we kind of have that information and the tools to measure it. So.
Yeah, and I would imagine it creates its own kind of hurdle for a company like Rapsodo, where you now are giving so much information. I mean, we were just kind of like taking a look through it, and one thing that blew my mind was like with the premium subscription that comes with this, it'll save up to 10,000 shots. So I'm just thinking like, all right, we're developing a mountain of data. at some point for your mid-level handicappers or people who are starting to learn the game, there's going to be a point where that's like overwhelming, like you were saying, like a little bit too much. So how do you then say, okay, we're gathering this data, but then how do you also make it digestible to the everyday golfer? I know you guys have some session insights and stuff that are built in, but I imagine that's a particular hurdle that you don't want to at some point scare off half the golf market because they're like, I can't take that. That's too much information for me. How do you approach that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think some people, that's like one of the hurdles with it of getting better. It's like, I don't want to look at that. I got it enough to worry about. Whereas I actually think metrics can simplify things, right? So like what's great about our product is like, if you're one of those people that like loves looking at your swing, seeing the different positions, we have that available. But really for me, like if it feels good to me and it's flying kind of how I want and the numbers check out to me, like, you know, I'm hitting my driver well, okay, what are the numbers? Okay, my smash factor is 148, 49. I'm hitting it solid. It gives you that feedback. So I actually think what we do is simplify it. So we have 13 metrics, which I kind of think are the ones that you need in terms of, it's not, you know, there's some out there that have 40, 50 metrics, and it's almost like I don't even know where to look. So I think we have enough to kind of simplify it for people. But session insights, we breaks down your club gapping, kind of gives you more visuals in terms of your data, if that's something that's interesting to you to kind of learn better. There's just kind of, what's nice with ours is you can kind of make it what's best for you. So more visual, more numbers based. But we also have some exciting features. I can't quite fully tease, but in the works to kind of help people track their data along the way. So definitely be on the lookout for that.
That's very cool. And like I said, if nothing else, like all the data is there. And even for people who may not want to do it on their own, I would imagine you're going to get a lot more out of your coaching sessions and your, even if it's not lesser than coaching, maybe you're the person who just pays for one or two lessons. You couldn't even establish like necessarily a coach, but one or two lessons from a golf professional per year. I have to think that if you have the ability to walk into that lesson with some hard data, I mean, most coaches and instructors at this point are going to put you on a launch monitor and gather some stuff at that moment, but there's a huge value in showing some more over time. Like if you can pull it up and say to someone, hey, look, this is what my last 5 range sessions looked like. And as you could see, this is a metric I'm struggling with. It's got to be something that gives you can squeeze a little bit more value out of the lesson by being able to show it to your coach. Do you find that like a lot of people are using it for that? Are they bringing the data to their coaches they're working with, or even are coaches asking for it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the coaches love it. It's great for the players because, as you said, whether you're getting 2 lessons a year or 2 a month, there's that time in between where the coach kind of gives you, a couple of drills to work on. And then when you come back, yeah, he has the launch monitor most likely there or the video to give access, but like you're really filling in the gaps of like showing him what you're working on or even just showing the progress over time, right? Like that's why I love having the data, is just kind of those benchmarks, is you could look back in your session history and see, how fast was I swinging the driver a year ago? I've been working on this with my coach and well, I'm actually swinging it slower. I'm actually swinging it faster. What's he's teaching me is working. So it kind of just gives you that to back it up, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get better, and getting better means different for different people. If it's hitting it further, hitting it straighter, hopefully, you want to hit it longer and straighter, but whatever your goals are, you can kind of measure that. So it's great for the coach to see what's working in between, and it's great for the player to really know that the feedback the coach is giving them is helping them succeed at their goals.
Yeah, and I think it's a harder measurement than most people think to quantify if you're getting better. Because like, what do us look at? We look at like our handicap or something like that. But we all know that your game can ebb and flow. You can have a bad round, and then you can all of a sudden be discouraged. Like, look, I haven't made as much progress as I thought. So having something that creates a very like measurable, there's nothing subjective to it. It's like there, it's in front of your face that you've gotten better, helps. In fact, we did, towards the end of last year, we put Zach, who's behind the controls right now, our cameraman, Zach over there, we put him, he's a brand new golfer. And we're like, we want to see what happened if you took, 100 swings a day for 30 days. But like, how do we actually show improvement? And we ended up using the combines that were in the MLM1, and because it generates a score, and it was a little bit less subjective, like I said, than putting him out there and having, oh, we're going to play a round of golf now, and in 30 days we're going to play another round.
Right.
Because for all we know, we're golfers. You can have a bad second round and you don't tell. So this was a way that we could really show that Zach had improved. And on top of that, by storing all of those sessions, we talk about the 10,000 swings, he could go back and he could look at that progression over time. What did day 4 look like versus day 15? I know for our side, I mean, I thought that was an incredible value that we wouldn't have had without that piece of tech. Beyond that, it's just kind of how's your memory serves you. I think I hit a few good shots. Right. I think, but here it's in front of your face. And I don't know, Justin, you can tell me, but I would imagine there's going to be a lot more use cases of people using it in a similar way to see if what they're doing is making them better.
Yeah. I mean, I use it all the time in terms of like with my kids, even who are like really young, but they love seeing their like progress of how far they're hitting it, like certain goals trying to reach, and it makes it fun for them. So like, every 20, they're little, they're 5. So for him, 100-yard drive's far, but kind of setting those benchmarks, and it'll be really cool, 5 years from now to really see his growth, which that's an extreme example. But I think just having the data there is helpful. So for me, like I always put it down when I hit. Not necessarily like analyzing it, scrutinizing it every session. But for me, it's really nice to like sit down and like look at the history of what happened. Like what did I do when I was swinging it well? What did I do when I was not? It's just good to have. You never know when that data is going to be useful when you're trying to get out of the hole, because you always feel like you figure out the game, and then there's always that moment where you have no idea what's going on. And so it's good to be able to look back and kind of see what your numbers were and see how you were swinging it.
It's always refreshing when a golfer as good as yourself says that, and makes us feel a little bit more like we're not lost. But there's one metric too that I want to ask you about, because like you said, launch angle, right? We started talking about, and then now a lot of people are starting to like get keen on something like that. But there's a new one in the MLM2 Pro, and that's angle of descent. And I'll be honest with you, that was nowhere near as mine as an average mid-handicap golfer. That measurement was not anywhere near my radar until all of a sudden it was, when we went for a fitting and learned how that translates to scoring. Because when you're able to hold more greens, like it translated to like, especially accessing front pins and things, again, bringing that level of the high competing golfer and making it digestible and understandable for your everyday golfer. So tell us a little bit about that as a metric, because it stood out to me. That was something that was new for the MLM1, of why you included that angle of descent in there.
Yeah. I'm going to first ask you guys a question. There's 3 ways you can stop a ball on a green. Do you know what they are? There's 3 different techniques, essentially.
So more spin is going to stop it. Higher, the higher you hit it, obviously it's going to, but I would imagine higher also correlates directly with angle of descent, right? Or do you consider them separate?
No, there's definitely a correlation there. There's definitely a correlation.
Are those 3, or I'm saying is height and angle of descent the same?
So angle descent would be 2. No, you can bucket those in. There's another one, which is kind of a trick one, but you got the big 2.
What's the trick one?
The third would be just hitting the flag. So, you got a plug line in the bunker. You got no hope, and you're just hoping to hit the flag. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's like always key, is you kind of see with younger kids, maybe, older, or people new to the game, is they hit these, 7 irons, 8 irons that come in so low. And they just can't stop them on the green. And so that's just like a great metrics to kind of see either your stopping power with your irons, as you said, to like really attack those front pins. So you're really going to be looking at your spin number and angle of descent to make sure that, like, okay, when I hit this 6 iron, it's going to stop, appropriately. It's not running out. And then when you're looking at your driver, you actually want it to kind of find that sweet spot. I think it's about 35 degrees. I think it kind of depends on a couple metrics, but where you want it to essentially come down at an angle where it's going to maximize the roll. So like, it's not going to come down at 1%, or otherwise you would have hit it way too low. So I think about 35, 37 degrees with your driver. Someone will fact check me on that, but is where you kind of have that optimal, carry and roll. And then with your irons, you're looking at stopping power. So it's kind of that next level metric, I would say, is like a beginner. I would never say, look at your, descent angle. But as you're trying to improve, maybe get from a 10 to a single digit or single to like scratch is kind of like, again, you're trying to find those like nuances of like, how can I get just a little bit better? Because if you're hitting it, if you change your angle of descent, and you get 10 more yards of roll, that's one less club into the green. You're going to hit it probably closer over the span of 18 holes, and you might save one shot. So I think that's kind of the next level metric, but it's a cool one to add.
It is. And like I said, I hadn't really given it much thought until like I was working with the fitter, and he said, listen, if you've got a front pin and the front of that green, it's not something you can just run up. It's protected by a bunker or something. He goes, if you don't have the proper angle of descent, you cannot access that pin. It is out of your reach, and you're going to have to hit it and to the back of the green and hopefully get out of there with a 2-putt. And then to me, that's where those understanding, like I said, there's this mountain of information in the everyday golfer as we learn more and more, as devices like this become more accessible to us and we can start to understand it. You start to say, okay, now I see how that translates to my score. Because if I can't get it near that pin, add 2-3 strokes, because I'm going to be having a putt or chip back towards it. So I think that was really interesting. So speaking of that accessibility,
yes, I don't want to cut you off, but go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of that accessibility, how important was it for you? Because obviously there's a big tech jump here from the MLM1 to the MLM2. I would imagine there would have been some hurdle to keep the new MLM2 Pro in the price that you guys wanted. How important was it for you to stay in that sub $1,000 category? Or was it something that just happened by happenstance?
No, I think, it was definitely, it was interesting at the PGA show when we're kind of showcasing the product to new people. They were kind of like, well, how much does it cost? And I kind of put it back on them. And I got ranges from 800 to 8,000. So like in terms of like the tech that's packed in there, it's a lot. But for us, one of our missions within our company is to really give accessible, make it accessible to everybody. So it was definitely, really wanted to keep it under that 1,000 mark in terms of adding all the features in there. But we're really excited, and the response has been huge. So I don't know, maybe we made a mistake at too low, but no, we're really happy with the price point. So excited to get it in people's hands and see what they think.
I wanted to ask for anyone who's been living under equipment rock in the last month and they don't know about the product, and they might not be the geek out type with, all the other metrics we're talking about, the simulator side. I just wanted to ask you, like, what can you tell us about what type of simulator experience we're going to have for just the guy who wants to play at home, take swings at home? It's hard to get tee times. Golf's expensive. Now you can get a simulator for all this. So just share with our audience, Justin, if you can, what will they get with this? And if you could kind of tease, maybe you can, what's to come on the simulator side?
Yeah. So I think one of the things, like in terms of the learnings with MLM1, is people really wanted that sim experience. I think when you're indoors and you kind of get your numbers, it's nice, but it's kind of like, okay, how can I visualize it more? How can I kind of make this more fun and engaging? So one of the first things was just the 3D range. It's just kind of what we have, and you can kind of see your ball flight and get the numbers for the experience. But really the big seller here, and what people are really excited about, is with our simulation package, there's 30,000 courses, which is a ton. And be able to play those. And I kind of look at it as twofold of like, hey, like I got 30 minutes and I just want to go play and have some fun. Or like for me, like if I'm playing a tournament or competition and I've maybe seen the course before, maybe I don't have time to play a full practice round, like I'll just play it on the sim and get like an idea of, okay, well, I'm going to hit this off the tee. This is what the course looks like. So like when I go out and play it the next day, I'm ready to go. So it's really exciting to offer that at that price point. And then we also, so that's our own simulation Rapsodo. So once you get the unit for $699, the first year membership's included. So you already have access to the simulation. You're not paying anything else year one. And then we also partnered with Awesome Golf, which is a third-party software when they have a bunch of cool courses and different games you can play. And then E6 as well. So we're really excited about those partnerships. I'm sure there's more in the works. Can't say anything else, but really excited about those two partners and for people to be able to play those and experience those.
All right, we'll get you guys back to the interview, but first we want to thank Titleist. And to be your best today, you have to outperform the player that you were yesterday. And for some, it might be breaking 80. For others, it might be breaking the course record. And for all of us, it's playing a golf ball we know that will help us get the most out of our golf game. So now they just launched the new Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X, the most advanced to date, and will help reward your best swings like never before. Both models are longer, even more consistent, and featured unrivaled control. And that's the stuff we look for in a golf ball, guys. Just a quick little differentiation between the two. Pro V1 is the best combination of distance, spin, and feel in the game and delivers that penetrating ball flight. And then you've got the Pro V1X, which I game, and those balls, they fly higher, they spin more in the short game, and they still give you that low spin on longer shots to maximize your distance. You could find out all you need to know about the Pro V1 and Pro V1X. Just go to their website, visit Titleist.com.
All right, guys, and you know FootJoy is the #1 shoe in golf because they offer the widest selection of sizes, styles, and performance options for any golf shoe out there. And there's one I have to show you because these just landed, and they are so sick. These are the brand new, this is right here on the box, the Hyperflex Carbon. And you guys know I'm a big Premier guy. I'll talk about Premier in 1 second. But take a look at this and what they ddid here. I mean, if that's not a good-looking shoe,
sturdy too.
I don't know what is. And yes, we got the chance to catch up with the FootJoy team down at the PGA show, and they talked about how much stability they add into this shoe. And they said because of that increased stability, you're going to see a lot more of this on tour this year. A lot of tour players are going to be wearing it, and they've got that sneaker-like comfort, the high-performance traction. It's really great on the course, and then you even have things like the Flex XPs, the Flex we're wearing now, great off the course. I wear it when I'm in the simulator. We were actually traveling a lot in Georgia, wearing it a whole bunch. And personally, like I said, I've been a big fan of the Premier Series for so long. It's a shoe that's far and away the choice of more tour players than any other shoe. It's worn by Justin Thomas, Max Homa, Will Zalatoris, Cam Young, Jessica Korda. It just keeps kind of going on. And we saw so much of it these last couple of weeks on tour. And you'll see why as soon as you try them for yourself. So you could also do that, or you could choose the MyJoys. And I've got actually one behind Mike there.
You do, yeah.
Where you can go in and you can actually custom make them and dial them in there, just right behind Mike. It's just so cool what you can do across the board with the Premier Series, especially when you bring that MyJoy component into it. So trust the brand that's been #1 forever. Trust your game to FootJoy, the #1 shoe in golf. Shop now at footjoy.com. Now let's get back to our interview.
I love seeing now the ability to do a full sim setup for such an inexpensive price. We were talking before how, just years ago, it might be 5, 6, 7, 8, 25,000 to try to build this in your home. But, just for someone like me who's got a garage and I could throw up a net or a mat and use this as the brains, absolutely. Like that's stoked. I'm stoked about that. I mean, it just seems like a great price for something of that caliber.
Yeah. So. And well, like you brought up before, I mean, I think it's such a good point that one of the barriers kind of to entry to golf is the time that it takes to play.
Right.
So we've seen as the prices become more affordable, we've seen this incredible jump in the amount of indoor golf being played. Not only like you have it at the highest level. I mean, there are tours, full indoor tours in South Korea because they're so limited on the number of outdoor courses that they have. We have this Tiger Golf League that he's putting together, which is going to be like in a sim. And I've recently heard, I don't want to get this stat wrong, but somewhere at the PGA show, I remember talking to someone who's kind of floated across my awareness that if we're not there yet, we are soon going to cross that line where more golf is played indoors, more rounds per year are played indoors than outdoors. And I think a huge part of that is because something like this makes it time management wise, it makes it more accessible to play, and affordability. Yeah, I mean, sure, okay, so $699 for this unit, and then you play unlimited amount of golf. I mean, nowadays that could be like 5 tee times. Exactly. You know what I mean? So, what do you guys see? I mean, because you guys get the data. I know it's a new product, but how much are you seeing is simulator play now?
Yeah, I think you're like right on it. It's like in Asia, it's huge over there. As you said, like more rounds are indoors, I think in certain parts of the world than outdoors. And I think that is going to continue to grow. I think you'll kind of see a couple different things. I think just more kind of like online community in terms of, competitions, playing, things like that. But a lot of the data that we've seen so far is shocking to me. It was just single player rounds with simulation. So I think there's that time factor of like, hey, I want to play, but like my situation, I have 3 kids, a job, and it's like it's hard to kind of stay on it. I live in the Midwest, and it's hard to keep your game sharp. But you have 30, 45 minutes to go play 18 inside, your garage. I can make time for that, but it's hard for me to go out and find 4 or 5 hours to play consistently. So I think it'll continue to explode. I think like in, I don't know, 5-10 years, it's going to be so different environment in terms of what golf looks like in that world. And we're like really excited to be a part of that and journey and building that community.
That's awesome. And you're going to see it. Like poker nights are going to start to phase out. They're going to become league nights at Buddy's house. I
wouldn't be surprised at that. The other thing I wouldn't be surprised at is where we get to a point where just like now you see a rangefinder like dangling off of every bag. I think you're going to see a personal launch monitor,
no doubt,
on every bag. It's like, and I would have never believed that if you told that to me 5 years ago.
Right.
When you look at the astronomical cost of some of the launch monitors that are out there, and now we're getting them. And I guess I should have believed it when you realize how far like something like cell phone technology has become, and it's become more affordable and smaller, and the camera that's in your pocket is better than any camera your parents could have dreamed of, type of thing. I get that, but it's still astonishing to me when I see a product like this. And one thing I just want to have you just tell us really quick, as far as the nuts and bolts, Justin, how it's actually working as a launch monitor. Because I remember with the MLM1, we had the radar, and then you would use the camera on your phone. It was a camera and radar system. But if you could just briefly tell us how this actually works, the new MLM2 Pro, and how it's reading that golf ball.
Yeah, so what's really unique for ours, as you said, like the first generation, there was radar and camera. So for people listening, normally it kind of falls into 2 categories. There's either radar-based launch monitors or there's camera-based. They both have their advantages and disadvantages, but what's unique to us is we have both of those technologies. So we're using the camera and the radar. So with MLM2 Pro, we have a radar in there, and then we have 2 integrated cameras. So we have our shot vision camera, which is the 2K camera, which is that kind of down the line. You can see your swing with the shot tracer, but we also utilize that camera to help track the ball. And then we have the impact vision camera, which is a 240 frames per second camera that's really zoned in on what's happening at impact. And we're using also that to track the club and ball. So there's a lot of technology, a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me that know how to combine those tech. But it's really cool to see it in action. Something else I wanted to kind of go back on for a second is just that sim was what's cool now too, is before you kind of bought these packages and it was so on a, 50, 20 grand. What's great about ours is you can really customize it to whatever you want. So like Mike, as you said, you can just put down a net and a mat and use your iPad and play. You can get the projector set up, or you can even take it, which I'm really curious to see how many people actually play sim rounds outside at a range. Because that's a feature that's possible and I've used and kind of enhances your practice even if you're outdoors. So I think some people are like, well, I don't have a good indoor setup. And it's like, well, you can use it out at the range to play and just as another way to practice. So it'll be really cool to see how the people use it.
That's actually quite brilliant. I mean, I've heard a lot of golfers before a competition will on the range, like the end of their range session is just kind of play through mentally the first couple of holes. But now, I mean, you could have the luxury of actually doing it, like physically playing through those holes, which is pretty darn cool. I mean, 33,000 courses is a very high chance that the course you're playing that day is in there. So actually, I would be excited to try that someday. Dial up the course before we go out, play a couple of the holes and see how it translates to when I actually hit the first tee. That could be an interesting experiment at some point. Yeah, that's a cool one. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Let's see it in action.
So the last piece of the technology I want to talk about too is the ball that you guys developed along with it. It's a Callaway ball. So it's a premium ball that you use, but the development that you guys did was adding some of these markings in for the Rapsodo Precision technology. And my understanding is that works with the camera, that high frame rate camera to develop the spin. But you also have spin axis in there. So could you just kind of tell us, just like I know, obviously, like I said, the engineers are the ones who can give us the deep dive in it, but just like the layman's idea of how the ball works with that camera to give us those numbers.
Yeah, so that's how we were using. So there is, yeah, you can't probably see, maybe people that are watching can, but there's a really unique pattern on there. So each kind of dot pattern that's on there, and it's really precise in terms of the printing on there, and that's how we are measuring the spin and spin axis, as you said. So the camera at 240 frames is seeing the ball rotate, and that's how essentially it's getting calculated. And spin axis is one that I really like, because every time one of my buddies asks me, like, hey, I just, give me a tip. And I'm like, okay, well, what shot do you want to hit? I just want to hit it straight. And I'm like, okay, so if you want to hit a straight shot and you want to play well, you need to have your, like, essentially launch it directly at your target every time and have a spin axis of 0, right? So it's like that's not attainable. So what's really good is kind of working with a shot shape in mind. So if you're a righty and you want to hit a draw, you should be seeing like a negative spin axis, which means the ball, if you think about it in a plane, the plane's tilted to the left, so the ball's gonna curve left. And if you want to hit a cut, which is what I like to hit, you kind of want the ball to curve right, so you want a positive spin axis. So it's kind of understanding those numbers. So again, that's probably like a next level metric. If you're kind of just getting started, I would say maybe work on something else. But in terms of really refining it, there's kind of certain, 2 degrees is essentially negligible, but kind of understanding you don't want 30 degrees unless you're starting that ball way left. So it's really just measuring the curve of your ball. Yeah.
And
does that
listen,
answer?
like
that just
it does, and
even more.
No, it doesn't, because there's 2 things to that, I think. And I think there's always 2 ways to think of these things. Like on your high level, as you said, golfers who are learning different shot shapes, that's really, a key metric. But also another thing that I've kind of like recently learned, and just kind of that understanding has helped me quite a bit, is just knowing, we all want to quote unquote hit the ball straight. We say that as amateurs just because we're tired of chasing it down in the woods. But
right.
The reality is that we all kind of have a natural shot shape. And one thing I've learned so much of is to not fight that and instead play smart with it. So for me, I move the ball from right to left, right? I have a little bit of a natural draw. Just by, instead of fighting it and I'm not the type of guy who's going to be able to play a fade on demand, right? But what I can do is I can say, where's the trouble on this hole? Know which way my ball is going to move, and then I can take aiming points that are a little bit less risky, right? Instead of trying to force a square peg into a round hole. So for me, it's like, again, taking that something spin axis that previously you would hear more high level golfers talking about, but get on the launch monitor, hit a bunch of shots, and just see what's my trend. Like, what's my main spin axis when I'm not trying to do anything? I'm just hitting my natural shot. And by understanding my shot shape, without having to change anything, it's helped me dramatically just because I aim smarter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I think that there's ways, again, like I want to kind of dispel the idea that a lot of your newer golfers would just glaze over these things because like, I'll get to that when I'm a better golfer. I'm telling you, just by a simple understanding of it, it can make you better without having to change anything. And I think spin axis and how it relates to how you work the ball, just understand how you do it naturally and stop trying to fight against the current. I think it's been a big takeaway for me personally in my own development.
No, I think you're right. I think for me personally, like trying to get better, instead of trying to like understand everything about golf, I've really focused in on trying to understand everything about my game. So as you said, like learning the tendencies, learning the shots that I'm comfortable with when I'm playing in a round, and really like just understanding my patterns and tendencies is what's going to give you confidence. So for me, like I want to hit a fade, and it makes those pressure situations when you're playing, whether it's the first tee shot or the last, and you're trying to shoot your low score, so much easier. Because a lot of times when I play with my buddies who, are, I would say normal golfers, they kind of ask like how, I'm nervous. Where do I need to aim? And I'm like, well, where are you looking here? And I'm looking in the fairway. And for me, it's so much different of a thought process. It's like, okay, I'm looking at that tree and I know my ball is not going to go left. It may start left, but I know it's going to fade right. So it gives you that confidence to know, depend on that shot pattern. And even like at Torrey, where Max Homa won, I know there was that left pin on 16, the par 3. and he hit a fade into it, which is really not what you think someone would do with, the miss not being left. You think most people would try to draw it in there, but Home was like, I hit a cut. That's what I'm comfortable doing, and I know my ball is not going to go left. If it starts left, it's going to fade, and so I knew I wasn't going to hit it in that bunker. And I think that's easier said than done, right? Max is a pro, but I think no matter what level you are, it's knowing your tendencies, understanding that, and then when you get to the course, it just gives you so much more confidence. And my thought when I'm practicing is like, unless I'm working on something, very specific, it's yours when we're trying to instill confidence in your game, because then you're going to have more fun, shoot lower scores. So just kind of understanding that is going to help you.
Yeah, I mean, the more I learn about it, the more I see it. And like you said, even at the highest level on tour, the best golfers are the ones who are most self-aware. They just know they're not trying to be somebody else. I think, sure, there's a lot that you can learn from studying the best in the game. But I mean, you can think about Tiger talking about for Charlie, he's like, want him to watch, Rory but for something specific, Rory's balance, right? He's not saying emulate them. I think a lot of us, where we get lost is we try to emulate somebody that maybe we're a fan of, but maybe they have a completely different approach, a completely different shot shape. So just getting that awareness helps. And I think that it's devices like this that bring that awareness to us in a much more understandable way. I've been, experimenting with and using the MLM2 Pro a whole lot. I love that one of the things it just tells me right off the bat was, what was that shot type? It just says fade, draw, and I can look for patterns, and I can look for when I swing my natural swing without trying to change anything, what happened? And then that ultimately leads to confidence, because I know, hey, I'm doing it in my practice sessions. I can do it out on the course. But it's really exciting. I think for every level, like I said, the high level golfers, they're going to love all the new metrics that you've included in the MLM2 Pro. For us everyday golfers, especially us busy ones, we've all got young kids, all of us talking here, all have young kids, and understand that the practice sessions, they're not as frequent as they used to be. So you better get everything you can out of it. And I think something like this allows us, like I said, to squeeze every bit of juice out of it. So the last thing I'll ask you before we let you go is, if people are interested and they want to get a hold of one, here's the big question. What do they do? Because you guys had a pre-order, and then all of a sudden you didn't, because I know you guys got a lot of pre-orders. So tell us a little bit about what's the best course of action if someone's interested in getting one.
Yeah, go on repsoda.com right now, and you can sign up. If you give us your email, we'll kind of keep you up to date on supply and when it's available again for purchase. But it'll also be available for purchase late March, early April in terms of some retail stores as well. So definitely keep an eye out. But to stay up to date on all the latest, head over to repsoda.com.
I guess it's a good problem to have when your pre-order goes gangbusters, and it definitely, nothing else, it's got to validate for you guys that, hey, we must have answered some of the questions and the things that our buyers would want to see, with the fact that your pre-order kind of sold out so fast. It's got to be validating, at least, to think, hey, this we hit the nerve we wanted to hit.
It did. Yeah. I mean, we've been working on this for a long time, and it's been hard to keep it a secret and to kind of just release it at the PGA show, see the response, and then, I mean, see the response on social in terms of like the engagement and the views, and then the pre-orders. It was awesome to see just the excitement, and yeah, we're excited to get it in everybody's hands and see them using it in action.
Well, like Mike said earlier, congrats on the success with it. Thanks for taking time to come and talk to us about it. Like I said, it's been something we've been having a lot of fun experimenting with. And I know the version that you guys were kind enough to send us over, it's only, in beta. So we haven't even had the chance to experience all of it yet. So as the more and more features get in there and in the simulation, I'm excited to keep diving into it. And like I said, from a game improvement standpoint, it's been easily one of the best tools in our toolkit. So thank you for that as well. And thanks for coming on the show. I'm sure we'll get you back on here again sometime to talk a little bit more. We always feel like we learn something when we talk to you, but appreciate everything again. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, guys, thanks. It's been fun, and congrats on everything you guys have accomplished. It's been fun following you guys along.
Appreciate that, Justin. Thank you.
Thanks again,
Mike,
Justin.
we just want to see that. I want to see that draw back in action.
It's coming. That was a nice Blackburn lesson. And by the way, you were fantastic in that short with him, that video. I noticed you out there with him. That was cool. That was really cool to see.
That was my first. That was my first workout in a while. So
yeah,
I got after it.
You did. You did. Good stuff, man.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again. One day we'll get out on the course with you. I want to actually get a chance to play with you in real life out on the course and see what you can do on the golf course. But for now, like I said, thanks for coming by the show, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.